Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is your Committee on Education. Today's date is the 30th. We are in conference room 309, and it's 2 o'clock p.m. We have about a dozen plus bills on the agenda today. So let's get started. First up, we have HB 1648, School Psychology. First up, we have is DOE. Providing comments.
Well, good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica. My name is Heidi Armstrong from the Department of Education. The department respectfully offers comments on House Bill 1648, and you can find our comments in the written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. We received your testimony. Next, we have Department of Attorney Generals providing comments via Zoom in person.
Good afternoon. I'm Deputy Attorney General Andrew Kim. As provided in our written testimony, there are 4 instances in the bill which may contain an unlawful delegation of legislative power. The bill references the most current version of the Model for Comprehensive and Integrated School Psychological Services, or includes the phrase, "as may be amended." This reference to the most current version appears to incorporate future amendments to the model, which may be an unlawful delegation. Our office has provided a recommended amendment to allow future updates through publication through agency rulemaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we have DCCA providing comments. It's like Brian switched to DCCA.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Woodson and committee members.
Good afternoon.
My name is Christopher Fernandez, Executive Officer at the DCCA PBL Division. Unfortunately, Alani Kyogi, Licensing Administrator, was unable to attend this hearing due to a conflicting meeting, and I am here to relay her message of apology and to stand on the department's testimony offering comments.
All right, thank you so much for your testimony. We received it. Next, we have Board of Psychology also providing comments.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here also on behalf of the Board of Psychology's Legislative Committee, which has submitted testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have the Hawaii Association of School Psychologists providing testimony and support via Zoom.
Hi, aloha, Chair Woodson and representatives. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Leslie Bonnick. I'm the current National Association of School Psychologists delegate to the state of Hawaii. We stand on our written testimony and are also available for any questions. I did, in looking through some of the opposing testimony, want to clarify a few factors. One has to do with the sunrise analysis. A sunrise was completed, and though it was inconclusive, have you ever looked at any of the other mental health professionals in the sunrises that they've had, including clinical psychologists, social workers, licensed marriage and family therapists, and licensed mental health counselors, you'll notice that theirs is also inconclusive. And this really comes down to, when you're talking about consumer protection, psychological damage is really hard to prove. So just because it comes back inconclusive is not a reason to not license. In addition, there's been a lot of testimony about we don't belong with the other psychologists. However, prior to Mr. Fernandez's association with DCCA, his predecessors actually did add school psychologists in title, and we are already there under the doctoral level. And all we're trying to do is keep that together. Another board that would be similar to this is nursing. You have nurse practitioners, RNs, and LPNs. They all work at different levels of training, but they are all under the same board. We are asking that the specialist level school psychologist, which is a majority of people in the state of Hawaii, be added in that Board of Psychology under DCCA for that reason, because we are already there in statute. Thank you so much. And again, I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have the National Association of School Psychologists in support. Not present. We also have the Hawaii Children's Action Network providing testimony and support. HGEA in support. Hey Coalition providing testimony and support.
Yeah, Sherry Nakamura, HA Coalition, providing testimony and support. Stand on our testimony.
Thank you for being here. We have testimony from Kaila, individual in support. via Zoom. Kyla Doherty,
Yes, aloha, I'm here.
thank you for being here. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry about that. All right. Aloha, my name is Kayla Doherty. I am a Hawaii Island resident. I support House Bill 1648. I watched the Senate Bill 958 hearing last week, and I'm just a little confused about some of the information that was shared by the Hawaii Board of Psychology. It seemed both valid but kind of irrelevant. Their major concern is that school psychologists do not have the appropriate background to prescribe or diagnose. As a constituent of Big Island, it appears to be irrelevant to me because that's not their intention. I believe their national association states that a few states have enacted legislation that allows only doctoral level clinical psychologists the authority to prescribe some medications. And so as a constituent, I prefer to have a licensed school psychologist with the proper training to assess my child, especially knowing that we're the last state to have licensure in place. I really hope that the committee and board will, find an opportunity to get school psychologists in that direction. And I just wanted to clear some things up that didn't really feel appropriate to me, and I still support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We have about a half dozen individuals all providing testimony support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this measure? Please come up. Identify yourself and your affiliate.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Lachika. My name is Alex Licht, and I'm the Legislative Chair for the Hawaii Psychological Association. We did submit written testimony on time, which you should have. Hawaii Psychological Association very much supports the licensing of school psychologists. Under the Department of Education or another arrangement, 48 states in the country license school psychologists under departments of education or teacher standard boards. There's only one state, Texas, that does it under the Board of Psychology, but Texas requires a doctoral degree in psychology beyond the master's. People look at the word school psychologist and has the word psychologist, so they think that maybe these are pretty similar professions. I think if you look at the training, they're actually quite different. There was a sunrise analysis done for the legislature in November of 2022. The auditor did conclude that the scope of practices has not been spelled out by the proponents, so it remains unclear that this bill may allow them to go beyond the role that they're traditionally trained for, the screening for special education and counseling for common school behavioral problems. This may allow them to do the full range of diagnosis and treatment of mental health disorders, which they don't have the training for. It takes there's about twice as much training is required to be a psychologist in Hawaii. This bill would put two school psychologists on the Board of Psychology. We feel that it's inappropriate for us to hear licensing complaints against a school psychologist and vice versa. A very similar bill was heard on Friday in the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. They formed a working group to study the issues that I raised, and we agree with that approach. I hope you will consider it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. That's all I have on my list. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this proposal, HB 1648?
I would like to testify, Chair, if I can.
Please go ahead and state your name and your affiliate, please.
Thank you. My name is Alec Morentic. I'm a school psychologist on the Big Island of Hawaii for KKP Complex Area Schools. I'm also a past president of the Hawaii Association of School Psychs and their current legislative chair. I just want to emphasize that when we are talking about consumer protection within this particular legislation, that we are talking about protection for our kids. School psychologists undergo unique specialized training to conduct psychoeducational evaluations within the context of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, with Section 504 of the American Disabilities Act, and other relevant case law. Others providing those kinds of services without a school psychologist background are putting our kids at jeopardy because they don't have the appropriate training to provide those services. I also want to highlight that in the language of the bill as it's written, it is aligned to national standards, nationally adopted standards about the scope of practice of school psychologists, and that Louisiana, New Hampshire, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia provide education specialist level licensure under the Board of Psychology. They also provide it under the state teachers boards of those respective states, but they also provide avenues to do so through the Board of Psychology, which based on how our current laws are written and our labor laws are lined up, we are most appropriately there versus needing to move labor unions potentially to go under HS or the HTSB. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony for this bill? HB 1648. Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. I have questions for Department of Education, please. Thank you for being here. And so can you please kind of expound upon what the current requirements are in terms of credentialing for your school psychologist?
Sure. So our school psychologists in Hawaii have a master's degree in either school psychology, counseling psychology, or clinical psychology. They also have to have participated in a 1,500-hour internship before they service our students. Oh, I'm sorry, 1,200.
Is there any type of practicum or clinical requirement defined as school time under supervision?
Well, in their internship experience, they complete 1,200 supervised hours, and many of those hours, if not all, 600 are in the school setting.
In some of the testimony, it suggests that, if these individuals are not licensed, it could lead to improper recommendations, improper direction of services. Do you concur with that statement? I know that you just alluded to some of the provisions that are required to practice in DOE schools.
Our school psychologists, with their qualifications and internship experience, are qualified and meet our minimum qualifications to perform the functions that they do. They are also evaluated annually. So there are continual checks on their scope of work and their performance.
But you're saying that they're qualified, but others are arguing that they're not qualified.
They do not, that others are correct in that they do not have a license. The department is not opposed by any means to having a license option or a certificate type option. Currently, though, the department nor the Board of Education license any of our employees. That falls under other agencies. So when this bill has come up in previous years, we did talk with the Hawaii Teachers Standards Board, and by statute, they give license to Unit 5. And the school psychologists are not part of that bargaining unit. We have also talked with DCCA, and currently they are not poised to offer a school psychologist license, and in our testimony we are suggesting to set up a working group to further explore what might need to be done on both ends if licensing is going to be one of the options.
Okay. I have some questions about that answer, but we'll continue because I know we have lots to go through. Is the department able to collect reimbursables for your current psychologists?
Yes, we are, through our administrative claiming process.
Would the reimbursables be higher if they were licensed psychologists?
No. Not through administrative claiming, no.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
DCCA, are you still here?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Thank you for being here. And so there has been a sunrise analysis that was conducted. My understanding is it was inconclusive, but there are other licenses that are offered that went through similar sunrise analysis that were also inconclusive. The testimony states a couple, general practitioner, psychologists, marriage and family therapists, social workers, etc. Those were all inconclusive sunrise analysis. And so why are you not offering a pathway to licensure for school psychologists?
Yes, Chair. Thank you for the question. I do not have an answer to that question on behalf of the department. I am happy to provide any kind of additional information based on the testimony provided, but I'm not prepared to answer that question. I can take that question back to the department.
How long have you been with DCCA?
I'm sorry, I've been with the DCCA for about almost 6 years, I believe.
Okay. You don't have answers to that question. That's perplexing. Okay. Thank you so much. Members, are there any other questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Question for Dr. Licton, Alex. So in your testimony, you identified a number of concerns, but you do agree on the establishment of the working group.
Definitely.
And the different, with all the challenges that were raised, who do you feel should be included as part of this working group for us to get to a better, kind of
Oh, I hadn't
place?
given that much, too much thought to that answer. I think the people that testified today, the obvious people would be school psychologists, psychology, Department of Education, DCCA, the people that testified today that have a stake in this.
Is there anything from that you've raised as part of your testimony that you feel this working group should give special attention to?
Yeah, make sure the scope of services is adequately defined and that it lines up with the training.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, sir. We'll go on to the next bill. We have HB 1649. This is regarding nationally certifying school psychologists. It's an incentive program. First, we have on our testifiers list, Department of Education offering comments. Thank you, A.S. Armstrong. Next, we have HGEA in support. Okay. Next, we have the National Association of School Psychologists offering testimony and support. We have Hey Coalition in person in support.
Stand on our written testimony and support.
Thank you for being here. We have the Hawaii Association of School Psychologists via Zoom, testimony and support.
Aloha. Thank you again, Representative. This is Leslie Bonnick with the Hawaii Association of School Psychologists. We stand on our written testimony. As we've just talked about, Hawaii is the only state in the nation without a credential for school psychologists. And so the national certification is a pathway to actually getting nationally certified so that the years of service can count in Hawaii. We've had several people say that they don't count their years of service in Hawaii because of a lack of credentials. So when there is a national credential, sometimes those years can be counted. That's one. Two, HGEA, again, it includes Unit 13 educators. And so we are not included in the Unit 5 incentives, which have been done legislatively in the past. So Unit 5 educators are privileged to have a national certification bonus in the amount of $5,000 to $10,000 annually. All we are asking is for parity, that nationally certified school psychologists be expanded into that language to be included so that our national certification is also recognized. In my time in Hawaii, I worked in the state from 2010 to 22. So over the course of 12 years, we had to give in 60 to 65 school psychs. And as the psych examiners retire, we are just becoming testing machines because there aren't enough of us to actually fill those positions. In addition, we don't have a training program on island. So all of the school psychologists have to come from the mainland as it stands now. And because we underpay school psychologists significantly compared to mainland states over a 12-month compared to most 10-month salaries that they get, there's not a lot of incentive for them to move to Hawaii. So you're telling them their years of service don't count. You're going to have to take a 50% pay cut, and your national certification is worth nothing. This is one step in the right direction to actually have some incentives to having school psychs come and fill those vacant positions, because our cake year going without, and we saw what happened last time. That was the 1999 Felix Consent Decree, and it's really looking like we're headed in that direction if we don't do something now. Post-COVID, post-Maui fires, now is the time more than ever to put these incentives in place to actually get qualified school mental health providers who are trained to work in schools with those kids that have the needs that we know are just continuing to be on the rise. Thank you so much, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have individual testimony from Kyla Doherty, providing testimony and support via Zoom.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Thanks again for allowing me to speak. My name is Kayla Doherty. I earnestly support House Bill 1649. I believe attracting qualified school psychs would be a priority for HIDO, and that addressing current shortages through additional funding as part of an incentive program is necessary. I am a Hawaii Island resident. I've been following this and related bills for several years, and I urge this committee to consider the many hats that school psychs wear in supporting our keiki and caring for our communities. They provide crisis intervention, they train teachers and support staff, and they assess students and help implement academic interventions, among many other duties. There are many professions which overlap and can do some of this. For example, teachers assess, administrators provide training, and clinical psychs, of course, respond to crises. But school psychologists are thoroughly trained to excel in all of this in our schools. I believe we should compensate them fairly for their roles as education specialists. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We have about a dozen individuals all providing testimony and support, none available to testify in person or on Zoom. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony for this proposal? Seeing none, members,
I would like to provide testimony, Chair.
Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. I stand on my written testimony, and I just want to emphasize that we have about a 30%, I think I'm underestimating that slightly, a 30% vacancy rate for school psychologist positions. On average, one school psych is doing the work of at least 5 based on nationally recommended ratios. And our incoming school psychologists this year are receiving no shortage differentials of any kind despite those vacancies. HGEA tried to go to the negotiating table last year to address these issues, but there were no direct actions that were taken as a result of it to address these issues. So this legislation would provide a way for school psychs to be incentivized to work here, stay here, maintain national certification here, through similar avenues that already exist for other educators that have nationally certified schemes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know if, in fact, even if the psychologists are not licensed, if they're able to receive the certification? You're saying that that's a possibility still?
Yes. School psychologists can apply for their nationally certified school psychologist credential. It is not the same thing as a license. It is similar to national teacher credentials and national counselor or school counselor credentials. It's something that signifies that you go above and beyond to maintain a certain level of professional development each year. Ours is one of the most stringent, with 75 hours required every 3 years, with certain additional criteria met in terms of content areas and professional development providers.
Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else wishing to provide testimony? I know I asked a question out of turn, but okay. Members, any questions? Seeing none, quick recess. Sorry. Ready? Okay. Thank you so much for convening for the Committee on Education. Next up, we have HB 2774 regarding the Department of Education and local ag products. First up, we have on our testifiers list is DOE providing testimony and support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kurt Otaguro, Deputy Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the department. Department stands on its written testimony in strong support of this measure. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have the Hawaii Department of Agriculture providing testimony, offering comments in person. Not here. Next, we have Hawaii Public Health Institute in person, providing testimony and support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. My name is Dennis Chase, and I am the program manager of the Farm to School Hui for the state of Hawaii and Farm to School programs at Hawaii Public Health Institute. We are testifying in support of this bill that very simply takes Farm to School Act 175 from 2021, which requires the Department of Education to provide 30% locally procured food by 2030, 35% by 2035, etc. And this contrasts with Act 176, Farm to State, which also lists Department of Education, but requires 18% local food by 2030. So this bill would simply correct that juxtaposition, I guess would be the word. And so we are in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Hawaii Farm Bureau providing testimony in support. Mr. Miyamoto. Ulupono Initiative providing testimony in support. Is Micah here? I don't see Micah. We also have individual testimony from about 3 individuals, all providing testimony in support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? Can you guys hear me through this thing? Is it okay? Okay. Okay, seeing none, members, are there any questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Representative Pruso.
Sorry, for Deputy Superintendent Otaguro. Aloha, thanks for being here. So I asked you this question, I think about 10 days ago, and our office went back and looked and we hadn't seen the Farm to School report. And I was wondering if you had those numbers available. So the current percentage, where are we at?
We did submit that through the legislature. It was a bit late, so it's out there now.
Okay.
But right now we're at 6.14%. We're a little backwards.
Yeah, that's backwards.
Yeah.
Okay, and where are you in terms of the RFI and RFP process with the new Farm to School coordinator?
Yep, the RFI has gone out. It was issued in October. So the results are in. We actually had a pleasant surprise with a lot of different interested parties. And so the next step is for us to assemble all that information and finalize the RFP. I'm pleased to report that we do have a Farm to School coordinator on board, very capable. He's focused on a plan, short-term and long-term. He's also putting together his abilities to track the purchases by island and by product. And so he'll do it by county, and then for beef or food or produce or whatever we can assemble right now, and to look at what we are purchasing from the mainland through a distributor and seeing what sources we have locally to do that. We're also working, thanks to superintendent, to talk to the local industry, the food hubs, and just to start opening up discussions, because I know last year we did talk about food certification, food safety, and all that. With the 7,000 plus farmers, we know that not all of them are going to get certified. In the near term, we're going to hit these goals, and so we need to find alternative measures so that we can start to leverage the industry here to help us get there.
And one additional question, Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
So the data task force is really interested in alignment of data collection and interconnection synergy between data sources. And I'm wondering, we're asking for this alignment in reporting, which would be much simpler if there was connectivity between your data sources. So I'm wondering if you are working with other state institutions in creating like an apples to apples system, or if that's something that you have left to the farm to school coordinator.
We do have systems that we have installed and are installing. They're not all complete yet, but that's a good recommendation. I'll take a look at it. I don't know any. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll get back.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next proposal. We have HB 1969. Excuse me, we have HB 2620, DOE and procurement exemptions. First up, we have DOE providing testimony and support in person.
Good afternoon. Department stands under written testimony and support. We're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have SPO providing comments in person.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Bonnie Kahakui, Acting Administrator and Chief Procurement Officer. The State Procurement Office stands on its written opposition to the bill's provision exempting DOE from conducting small purchases in excess of $25,000 through an e-procurement system. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Hawaii Public Health Institute in person providing testimony and support.
Hello again, Chair, Vice Chair, Dennis Chase, Hawaii Farm to School Hui, and Hawaii Public Health Institute. We are testifying in support of this bill in general. We do have some questions and would like to see a more detailed plan from the Department of Education at some point in how it will affect small farmers in general. My understanding is it's designed to help more small farmers with procurement through the DOE, but I'm interested to see how that will work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Hawaii Farm Bureau providing testimony and support. Ulupono Initiative in support. That's all I have on my list. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Rep. Pruso.
My question is for Director Kahakui.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. So I understand from your testimony that this capacity is already available to the DOE. Is that a correct assessment?
To exempt?
Correct.
There is an exemption provision in the 103D that allows the Chief Procurement Officer to do exemptions, but that's on a very case-by-case situation. So we can understand that that may be time-consuming, but the alternative in this bill says giving them a blanket exemption, which is what we oppose.
Okay. And the basis again for that opposition?
The whole premises of procurement is to have a level playing field for everyone. Everyone has an equal opportunity to compete. If you're allowing the schools to do 3 quotes, doesn't seem to be any mechanism right now how that's going to be handled, how that's going to be accountable, who is going to check to make sure that there's no parceling involved and that they're not going to choose their favorite vendor over and over again. And how is that fair to all the vendors out there that have similar and like products?
Chair, may I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
So it's my understanding that your offices are completely separate from the procurement offices of the DOE.
That's correct.
And then you provide oversight or regulation of their processes?
Yes, the State Procurement Office provides guidance to all the jurisdictions, not only those under my Chief Procurement Officer jurisdiction. So we do provide that guidance and oversight. We hear testifying. We also do all the administrative rules for procurement.
Is there enforcement there though? What I hear is guidance.
There is some enforcement, depending on what the policy board does. If there are certain rules that we will have to enforce on them, because all of the jurisdictions, regardless of where they are, have to follow the same statutes and the same administrative rules unless they have their own rules in their particular statutes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Vice Chair?
State Procurement Office. So in follow-up to the guidance, because we did have a similar procurement bill that was vetoed last session.
Yes.
And so, I mean, given this is the largest department that's going to be purchasing a large volume of everyday ingredients every single day, what guidance have you since provided since the veto of the bill last year? Like in the interim, have you worked with the department to mitigate any of the risks or concerns that you've identified so that we can move forward on these procurement issues?
We haven't had too much conversation, but we do know that the DOE has a e-procurement system already. Their construction branch uses another system called HAPS. Their procurement office, their DOE procurement office also uses Hypro. So the system is already out there. They're already using it. And so we're simply suggesting, and we've made that comment to them before, why don't you use the systems already in place? Why do you want to go back to a manual process that won't be transparent? We don't see where the accountability lies. So we've had that conversation, and we've offered to help train the schools. And I know that they're, considering it, but we haven't moved forward from that point yet.
Sorry, Chair. DOE, are you able to respond to that on why we're preferring the manual? What are the existing challenges with either your vendors or in implementing the electronic system?
Sure, thanks. It's one of speed and as you said, procurement for local vendors first. That's our drive. The challenge that we have is one of great magnitude. We have 258 schools. Not all of them purchase, but we have a lot of different people that do this. I don't disagree with Chief Procurement Officer that there has to be accountability. There absolutely has to be accountability. We need to look at a compromise in terms of the effort to train all of the staff out in the cafeterias who do the purchases against an electronic system. And we do have both, and probably the Hypro would be the one that we should use. Mm-hmm. So we have to compromise. I believe that's going to be the challenge. Just work on our part, and that involves human training and making sure that they understand what they're buying electronically. But our effort was just simply to be expeditious because, as you said, we do purchase a lot of food.
And do you feel that the existing challenges right now will constrain you in terms of timeline, and or is that why the preference is to stick for now to the manual process versus electronic?
That's correct. That's just the easiest way to go.
But the goal is to eventually be able to do
Yes.
it all
Well,
electronically.
One is the dollar amount because we do buy. It's about $179 million operation. Food cost is about 40% of that, so it's a large portion of it. And so as if we bought everything through one vendor, no problem. But our goal through buying local is to buy from many, and we don't have. So when you buy from many, we have to distribute that and train.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Quick question for DOE. So your testimony indicates that the proposal would require back-ended tracking regarding the expenditures, and that will help you and to avoid parceling. Can you first explain what parceling is and explain as to why you think that it would help prevent it?
Bonnie can explain that, but parceling to me is simply what she just said. We can't just pick our friends and keep buying from them without a fair bidding process that's transparent. But I don't know if you have any.
I'll ask her in a second, but your argument is that the proposal as it's articulated would prevent that from happening.
We need to assure the State Procurement Office that we have those protections in place.
How would you do that?
That would be incumbent on us now that we're taking the liability to do this, to track it, to audit it, and to make sure that we're in compliance.
You would assume legal liability?
We would have to assume the liability for the state, and if there's violations, then we should self-report.
Okay, thank you so much. SPO.
So the definition of parceling is artificial division to circumvent the procurement code. So currently it's at 25,000, so it's a little harder to divide to, well, the DOE has a 25,000. But the rest of the executive branch and the other jurisdictions have a $100,000 small purchase threshold. That is easier to parcel because now the agencies or the vendors or whomever they are, you can easily divide that out by, I'm going to buy 25,000 from this guy, I'm going to buy 25,000 this guy to avoid the electronic procurement system or to get the quotes as necessary. So that's what parceling is. And the greater the amount, the easier it is to parcel. So increasing the threshold for DOE for their fresh foods, produce, we don't have a problem with that because that is what the rest of the state is doing. What we're concerned with is the current statute says for all other jurisdictions, 25,000 or more have to be done on an electronic procurement system.
Okay, that answers my other question. Okay, thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next proposal. We have HB 1969. This is regarding the DOE and a fruit tree program. First, we have DOE providing comments.
Good afternoon. Department stands on its written testimony providing some comments. There are some challenges along with the bill proposed, but I'm sure that together we can work it out. But there are some concerns that we have. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. We received your comments. Next, we have Kauai Climate Action Coalition providing testimony in support, not here. We have Hawaii Public Health Institute testimony in support.
Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Dennis Chase, Hawaii Farm to School Hui, and Hawaii Public Health Institute. We are in support of this program. We are currently running a grant-funded program that does this exact same thing, that provides fruit trees, food trees, which can also be used for shade on school campuses. We've done plantings at about 20 different campuses across the state, close to 200 trees, and it has been an excellent resource for those schools relating to curriculum, food production, as well as general well-being. We are in support of this bill with the concern that we want to make sure that the independent programs that we and other nonprofits run are not sort of stopped from providing the same resource, and we're happy to work together with DOE to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have testimony from 350 Hawaii in support. Trees for Honolulu's Future in support. And then we have testimony from about 20 individuals, all offering testimony in support. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? Seeing none, members, any questions? Please go ahead, Rep. Martin.
For the department, please. So this bill was actually written in conjunction, in collaboration with the DOE, and never was there any intent. I see, there are concerns about fruit trees in inappropriate places or causing liability. Is it true that the DOE has ag programs that currently grow food and fruit trees?
That's true.
So this would just be a resource for those programs. But I appreciate your comments so that we can clarify the language. It's never the intention to have any trees that are not appropriate planted in any particular spot that is not desired by the principal or complex area. So I appreciate your feedback so we can clarify the language. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Representative. Members, any other questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Question for our Hi-Fi. Of the 20 programs that are campuses or schools that you currently partner with, do all of them have the fruit trees currently within that program?
Right now, 16 have already planted the tree. No, I'm sorry. 15 have already planted the trees. One is going to be planting next week, and 3 more on Hawaii Island have just started in the program, so they're still getting the training for the teachers about maintenance and things like that for the trees, so they haven't planted yet.
So there no mature trees yet that are being used for harvest.
So the program was started in fall of 2022, so I do not believe that any of those trees have been able to harvest yet, although some might be getting close.
Then did you get to read Department of Education's testimony on some of the concerns they mentioned, that pruning, maintenance, pest control, chemical pest control, fruit trees require climate, soil testing, irrigation. Are these parts of some of the things that you've considered as you were establishing your fruit tree programs?
Yes, so we do offer training for the school in maintenance, including all of those areas. We do also offer soil and water testing as needed, and we provide funding, and we also require buy-in from the principal and the maintenance staff at the school to make sure that everybody is on board. And so that if a specific teacher, usually it's teachers that complete the application, if they leave, we want to make sure there's administrative support so they can continue caring for the trees.
And does your existing grant funding allow you to continue to partner with the DOE as they expand this program, should schools determine that this could be their focus area, to provide tech assistance as you have with the 16 different schools?
Yes, so we have an advisory panel that includes several arborists and tree care professionals from across the state, that continues to provide support. Although we could always use more funding.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other questions, members? Seeing none, moving on to the next bill, we have HB 1651, DOE harassment and worker safety. First, we have DOE offering comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. Sean Bacon, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Talent Management on behalf of the department. We stand on our written testimony providing comments and are able to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have AG's office offering comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, members, and Horiuchi from the Department of the Attorney General. As we've noted in our testimony, we wanted to provide some language to address a couple of the terms that are used in the bill, unsafe or hazardous conditions, as well as substantial incidents of harassment. We proposed language that we think would address our concerns with those terms. Also, we wanted to note our concerns regarding the provision that would have the Department of the Attorney General providing legal representation to the employees. The department is not authorized to file affirmative claims on behalf of a state employee. But also, that provision of the bill could be interpreted as requiring the DOE to pay for private attorneys for the prosecution or defense of an educational worker, and this would be a significant cost to the state. Finally, in Chapter 711, the amendment to that chapter, we suggested some language that would, I think, clarify that there should be a relationship between the harassment and the fact that the victim is an educational worker. I'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Hawaii Public Charter School Commission in person providing testimony and support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. The Commission stands with its written submitted testimony in support of this with suggested amendments. We're available here to answer any questions, and we look forward to working with both you and the DOE with this matter.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have HGEA and support. We have Young Republicans of Hawaii offering testimony and support. We also have testimony from HSTA offering testimony and support.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, members of the committee. Educators in the public schools of Hawaii often are subject to harassment, especially in this age of social media, as it becomes increasingly difficult to find and retain quality employees in our public schools. More protections must be afforded to educational workers, ultimately for the sake of our keiki. HSTA asks for your support on this bill.
Thank you for being here, Mr. President. Next, we have CARES, providing testimony and support in person, Angela Melody Young.
Angela Melody Young, testifying in strong support on behalf of CARES. This bill seeks to protect teachers and staff because the basic principle here we're dealing with is harassment. When we're dealing with harassment relating to students, it's called bullying. But when it's harassment with teachers and counselors, it's harassment. So what is harassment? Making someone feel depressed, inciting others to target someone to humiliate them, kicking, touching, sexual abuse, destruction of property, verbal abuse, insults, name-calling, gossiping, discrimination, unfair treatment, and prejudice. So this policy sets a law to say if there is unsafe and hazardous conditions for teachers, the supervisor must be alerted, and the supervisor will take action pursuant to subsection D3. How do we protect the staff and teachers at school? How do we train and equip counselors? Teachers and staff, how do we train them to respond? We see a lot of the old policies over and over again make a robust reporting procedure, yet that's a lot of extra work for the DOE staff. Perhaps it can start with a flyer at school. The Attorney General has a good policy on a flyer about cyberbullying to disseminate what harassment is to public school students. Maybe they can make one for harassment of teachers and staff at public schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have 6 individuals all providing testimony and support. We also have individual testimony from Sean Whitworth in support via Zoom. Is Mr. Whitworth here?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair Woodson and committee members. My name is Sean Whitworth, and I'm a special education teacher from Farrington High School, and I support and help to write HB 1651. At the end of last school year, my family and I was harassed on social media, and I was physically threatened through emails by a parent while attempting to enforce the electronic use policy of my school. For nearly 6 months, I attempted to secure a TRO unsuccessfully to protect myself from an irrational parent who didn't respect the boundaries of civility or my professional and private life. During this time, I navigated this legal process and interactions with law enforcement and the judicial system alone, as the situation was treated as a personal matter by the DOE. HB 1651 represents the policies and procedures I wish was in place as I went through my ordeal. For that reason, I ask that you support HB 1651. I disagree with the Department of Education's position that the entirety of Section 2 is difficult to enforce and redundant with the existing department processes and should be removed. How is a policy that requires the DOE to create a written safety plan to protect workers from harassment difficult to enforce? How is reporting harassment to law enforcement difficult to enforce? If the procedures and processes of the DOE in place was adequate to address harassment, how is harassment by this individual allowed to continue for nearly a decade, affecting educators in the elementary, middle school, and high school? I also believe that HB 1651 is important because educational workers should not be forced to work with parents that physically threaten them and that we've attempted to get a TRO against to, again, protect ourselves from physical harm. Chair Woodson and members of the committee, I ask that you support HB 1651 and remove nothing from Section 2. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have individual testimony in person from Inger Stonehill. Oh, there you are.
Hi. I did provide written testimony, but I feel very emotional about this, so I would like to read some of my written testimony, not the entirety, because I know I only have 2 minutes. So I tried to highlight the important parts that I felt that you guys need to hear in person. So, my name is Inger Stonehill. I'm addressing you today as an educator of nearly 20 years and as a parent. I want to thank Chair Woodson and Vice Chair LaChica and the committee members for giving us this opportunity to speak. Alongside two colleagues, you just heard from one, and others, we are contributors to this bill, HB 1651. Over the past 2 years, I too have faced harassment, intimidation, and physical threats from a parent. That should not be accepted in any workplace. However, through this experience, I discovered that the Department of Education lacks neither a robust nor adequate system to assist educational workers dealing with severe harassment. We aim for this bill to alleviate this problem for teachers, administrators, oh gosh, now I lost my, sorry. For educational workers, administrators, anybody that answers the phone. It's not just for the teachers, okay? And we wanted to have an accountable plan to address such issues. For myself, I experienced extreme levels of harassment, intimidation, physical threats. My physical and mental health suffered in all my years of teaching. I had never encountered such horror. This should not be allowed, and there should be a system in place at the workplace. Most employers have mechanisms to assist employees facing harassment and threats. Through my experience with the Department of Education and this parent, I felt unprotected and unsafe. Voicing my concerns yielded no procedure or plans to help me. I felt abandoned and helpless. Seeking help, I consulted a therapist and a psychiatrist due to severe panic attacks, fearing for my life. I had to work on my own to feel safe. Feeling scared, I attempted a temporary restraining order, writing it myself and going to the courtroom alone, because I was told that a restraining order is of a personal matter. So, with the assistance of many of us, we considered the previous bill, HB 2125, but found it too broad and unclear. This bill, 1651, aims to be clear and specific on how to help educational workers face severe harassment from a parent or community member. Moving forward, this proposed bill should help teachers, educational workers, administrators understand what the Department of Education can offer. It outlines a plan of action instead of teachers, like myself, struggling to figure out their next step. It does not imply, and I want to speak on this, it does not imply that parents shouldn't voice concerns. I too want the best for our students, but I can't do my best if I fear for my life and suffer mental anguish. Wrapping up here, educational workers have unions that are supposed to protect us, and our place of employment should protect us. I didn't feel enough was done to help us feel safe. Will it take someone to be hurt in order for us all to mobilize to stop this egregious harassment? In closing, I urge you to consider the importance of this bill in creating a blueprint for educators, educational workers, administrators to navigate harassment, ensuring a secure and conducive environment for us all. Thank you for your attention to this critical matter.
Thank you for your testimony, Mrs. Stonehill. Next, we have testimony. Actually, just one other individual providing testimony in opposition. They are not here. And another individual offering comments, also not here. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony? Seeing none, members, are there any questions?
Sure.
Please go ahead.
Ma'am, you just spoke. I have a question. Yeah. So, yes, please. You mentioned HB 2125. This bill, I think, was 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It came through. What's different in this bill? Does this bill lay out a clear plan for reporting? Is that the difference? Because last time, I think folks were confused that if parents are simply speaking out and teachers feel annoyed, that they'll be sent to jail for 30 days or something like that.
Right, exactly. And, you know, I'm a special education teacher, and there is a system in place to, it's procedural safeguards. There's a system in place to go and complain, but not, the threatening. And so, to be honest, the thing that's really different is the section 2. And that's why my colleague is also asking that not to be removed, because that is the difference. And HB 2125, we did get some things from there, and I really liked the way that we try to put it out there. It's not just teachers. It's educational workers. So anybody, I mean, in my previous school, the attendance clerk got harassed, the people in the business office, many people. So, you get harassed, and not just harassed, annoying harassed. We're talking physical threats. Right. And this is just one parent, but I think there are other parents, and it'll come through or been previously. Sure. So we just want to try to take care of that. Does that answer your question?
For sure. And I think we should take a strong stance against physical threats and all that. But my concern is the word annoy in here. So if a teacher or an educational worker feels annoyed, does that provoke them to go through this entire process? And
I can see what you're saying. The annoyed could be,
right. How do you
problematic.
define annoy? And it does not define annoy in this bill.
I think when we came up with that, we took it from, Department of Education's definition of harassment.
Okay.
So that could be,
Thank you.
worked on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions before?
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for listening to me. I know I got emotional, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay, go ahead. Representative.
For the DOE. I don't know who from the DOE. Okay, perfect. Hi, Mr. Bacon. I was just wondering if you could speak to what Ms. Stonehill and what Mr. Whitwer had talked about in regards to Section 2. I know that you folks are opposed to that. Can you speak to why? Because it seems like that's a really important part of this measure that would make anyone who works on a school campus feel safer.
So thank you for the question, Representative. I'd like to see if I could also bring up our subject matter expert from our labor relations and our investigation section to kind of help talk through this a little bit. Thank you.
Rep. Capella. I know Ananiole. I'm with the employee relations branch. I think, not to, we're very sympathetic of, the stories that we've heard, but I think in reality, it's hard for the department to be able to capture, I think, what is an open-ended, with the two terms were hazardous and what was the other one? Unsafe. Thank you. Hazardous and unsafe from the perspective of the employee. Now, we're not saying that we're not sympathetic and shouldn't, address the issue and it arises. And I believe that the department has the policies and procedures in place to both address it and investigate it. But for us it's kind of open-ended, and that was our biggest issue with having those two terms in there. And I think also there was a section for the seeking a TRO, giving them reasonable, and there was another term, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but those were the two areas where we thought that it'd be kind of hard to get a grasp on for us to enforce and to, identify the issue.
Thank you.
Ask your question.
And I would also just like to say very quickly thank you to the teachers who have come out and testified on this measure and have worked to craft it. And I know it's difficult coming out of COVID. You folks experienced much more than I think many people in the general public can ever understand. So thank you for your work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions, Vice Chair?
This question is for Sean, and it's repeated in several of the testimonies, but I wanted to just ask about what the general experience has been and challenges have been for those educational workers who are victims of harassment as they seek legal protections and have felt that and it's pretty consistent that both the DOE and the AG has not provided any support because it's considered a personal matter. Can you share a little bit about what that experience and getting into that process and what you feel that this bill does cover addressing that?
Thank you for the question. I think if you just take a look at the timeline events, from when you face harassment, what happens next? There's, if you report it to the supervisor, there's no formal mechanism in place for what your supervisor would do next for it. If you're at a school with a principal, for example, that has, faced harassment, they might go ahead and have a written formal plan. But what happens if you work with an administrator or principal that hasn't faced harassment and doesn't treat it with the same level of respect or empathy? So instead of having, different policies at different schools, in my opinion, it's good to start off from the very beginning, where you have a statewide policy that will protect all workers. And so, again, I think it's important that you have a process in place, and once you report it, what is your next step? You try to go seek protection from, the judiciary. But, what happens if, you're not able to, get protection from the judiciary? What happens if a parent, knows how to game the system and wait out the 90 days? Well, I tried to go to court, for the first 90 days and was unsuccessful. That burned 3 days of leave. What happens if I renew my TRO and try to go through another 90 days? Now I've burned 6 days of leave, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, my employer covers 5 days of leave. So what happens if I unsuccessfully want to file another TRO to be protected? Am I going to, cover sick leave? And so there's a lot of ways that things, can go sideways. And so we're looking, we're asking for it to be a formal thing. And, I'm trying to protect not only employees, but also the employer. What if an employee makes a mistake in what they disclose? So the help, provided to teachers or educators to, write it successfully, write a TRO successfully. I'm not asking, like that other person mentioned, the DOE to, pay for a lawyer on my behalf, but just, some kind of checks and balance to make sure that, employees don't write things that are confidential, and so, again, I think there's a lot of beauty to everything we ask for. And so, again, I had to, and Inger, I believe, had to navigate, and other coworkers didn't come forward because they don't want to go on the public record to get a TRO. Because, again, if you file your story, it becomes public record.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Some questions for DOE.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, A.S. Bacon, for being here. So what is the current process, as you understand it, or procedures to protect workers from this type of harassment?
So, I mean, the department does have a process, an anti-harassment policy. And then what would happen is if there was an employee that did feel that they were being harassed, for example, from another employee, they could report it. We could then start to do an internal investigation. The department needed to and felt that it was important. We do have the ability to either put a current employee out on department-directed leave or leave pending investigation while an investigation process is happening. I think where a lot of this information is coming up today is members of the public that are starting to harass our employees, and how can we better address our employees that are being harassed from members of the public when we possibly, as the department, don't have jurisdiction over them.
So you do not have a process regarding the specific concerns that were laid out in the testimony, which you refer to as specific to employee on employee.
So I'm, again, I'm not familiar with, for example, the details of these two individuals that presented their information here today. However, I think at this point right now, the department would be very interested in working with the committee and the legislature to see how we can work together with the AG's office and others to figure out how we can best address this issue moving forward.
You were not aware of any of these instances?
I don't have the exact specifics of these individuals with me today, no.
I guess I just don't understand as to why, like in some of the testimony, some of the individuals are alleging like 10 years of harassment, as to why that's not addressed? Why wasn't the department more forward thinking or leaning to help those individuals?
Yeah, I would have to get back to you on the exact specifics of this of some of these cases here. I don't have that information in front of me, Chair.
Can the other gentleman answer the question from employee?
Sure.
He's with the DOE?
He's with DOE, yeah. He's from our employee relations branch.
That's right. That's him. Okay.
Yeah, so I would have to also go back and check with our investigations administrator. I don't have the answer to that question, Chair. Sorry.
But do you know, broadly speaking, because when you look at the state statutes and harassment, broadly speaking, if a subordinate or an employee reports alleged harassment, whose liability is that, per your understanding, in terms of looking into it?
If it's reported to up the chain of command, then
if it's reported to a superior,
then we have the obligation to look into it.
But it doesn't seem like that happened in these cases.
Yeah, again, I don't have the specifics for these cases, but I can go back and inquire with our investigations administrator and get back to you.
At what point is your communication structure organized that if there is like an individual that's seeking TROs on their own behalf because of something that happened at work, when do you get involved, or when are you, when does someone from one of your schools let you know what's happening?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Chair. I can get back to you. Sorry.
Okay. We're not trying to make you feel uncomfortable. We're trying to get to a better place, because this is not acceptable.
Hello, Chair. Keith Hayashi, Superintendent. To speak to your question, Chair, I believe that these situations that the testifiers have brought up deal specifically with, as Bacon shared, members of the public, which may also include parents that have harassed our employees. And so in that situation, we do encourage our employees, if they are harassed, to file police reports. I do know that there are instances where our employees have sought to seek temporary restraining orders on individuals. We have been advised, though, that through this process, there is a process in place where our employees work through that. They do, in seeking a temporary restraining order, it is through their individual capacity.
If the employee has the responsibility of filing the report per the complaint, who then assumes liability?
I can get back to you on that specific question, Chair. I don't have the answer to.
Because I think, heaven forbid, like if there's a complaint or if something was brought to a superior's attention, something happens to that employee, I believe my understanding of the law is that you are liable as a superintendent also.
Yeah, I will follow up and get that. You may be right, Chair. I want to be sure that when I respond, I have the correct information.
Okay. I don't know if there's anyone from AG's office that can answer that question, but Superintendent, you have a lot on your plate, and we appreciate all that you do, but also a part of your responsibility is to keep the students and staff safe.
I understand that, Chair. Yes, most definitely, and we do take that responsibility very seriously.
Right. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay. Rep. Pruso.
Superintendent Hayashi. So just to follow up, it's been my experience that administrators play a key role in protecting educational workers from parents who may become incensed and irrational and unnecessarily aggressive. but I think that experience was not consistent across schools. So I'm wondering if this is a deliberate and intentional part of the sizzle training to make sure the administrators understand their responsibilities as the employer on site to protect the educational workers at that school. And if it is an explicit and intentional part of the sizzle training, I would like your office to get back to me with specifically the content that's delivered and the instructional time allotted to that content.
We can do that, Representative Prusso. Most definitely, if I can add that we do take the safety and security of our employees very seriously, and we do as much as possible within the confines of the law that we're able to do that. So I will get back to you on your individual request, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And no, that's not allowed. But thank you. We have your testimony, and we can grab you if we have any inquiries. Thank you. Any other questions, members? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to the next bill, we have HB 2043 regarding harm to students registry for schools. First up, we have is DOE offering testimony and support.
Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, members of the committee, Keith Hayashi, Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here, Superintendent. Next, we have ELEL providing testimony support in person.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. I'm Yuko Arikawa Cross, Director of the Executive Office on Early Learning. We support the intention of this bill as a means to better protect children from those who've demonstrated perpetuating harm to children, and respectfully request that EOEL be included in the temporary panel referenced in subsection F. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you so much. Supporting the intent, duly noted. Next, we have AG's office providing comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members, Ann Horiuchi from the Department of the Attorney General. As we noted in our testimony there, I guess what we wanted to point out is that the registration of sex offenders as required under Chapter 846E applies to sex offenders who've been convicted of a sexual offense, and that criminal conviction requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. But the listing on the registry that's set forth in this bill would only require an investigation and findings made by an educational institution outside of a court of law. We've also noted a number of areas where we wanted to provide some suggestions for clarifying language, also to ensure that there's not a FERPA violation to exclude information that might include personally identifiable information of any student. And finally, because the registry would impact both private school and public school employees, there's a risk that highly sensitive employment information of non-governmental employees could be released. So to protect the state from liability, and also based upon the concerns we've raised regarding the extrajudicial proceedings or procedures that are surrounding this registry in this bill, we recommend that the registry and the related employment documents obtained from non-government educational institutions be exempted from disclosure under UWIPA. I'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for your testimony. Next, we have DHERD offering comments.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Ryan Yamane here from DHERD. We stand on our written testimony offering comments.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have the Charter School Commission offering testimony and support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. PJ4, Interim Executive Director. We stand on our written testimony in support of HB 2043.
Thank you so much. Next, we have testimony from the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools offering testimony in support.
Aloha and good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair La Chica, and members of the committee. I'm Deanna Dollier. I'm the Associate Director of the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools, and I'm here to stand in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Department of Human Services providing comments. We also have Punahou Schools offering testimony and support, not present. CARES providing testimony and support, not present. And we have 4 individuals all providing testimony and support. Anyone else here wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, quick recess. Okay, thank you so much for reconvening. Next up, we have HB 1653 regarding the DOE and annual increases. First up, we have Department of Education providing testimony and support.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kurt Otaguro, Department stand on its written testimony in support of this bill. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have testimony from BNF in opposition.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Sabrina Nasser, Deputy Director for Department of Budget and Finance. We respectfully oppose this bill because we believe it infringes on the collective bargaining process. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have the Office of Collective Bargaining, also offering testimony in opposition. We have testimony and support from Democratic Party of Hawaii in person.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair. I'm Chris Caulfield speaking on behalf of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. In full disclosure, I'm also Representative Capella's office manager, but I'm burning a couple of hours of vacation today to speak with you on behalf of the party's legislative committee, which is responsible for developing and managing the party's legislative priorities each year. And this year, strengthening education funding was selected as one of the party's top priorities. Pursuant to the education section of the official Democratic Party of Hawaii platform, the party believes educators should be paid professional salaries to ensure that all children are taught by qualified teachers. And we know that low teacher pay adversely impacts the state's ability to recruit and retain quality classroom teachers. I just want to highlight one part of our testimony. Governor Josh Green recently said in his State of the State address that the teacher shortage had been cut by 50%. That figure is not entirely accurate. According to a presentation provided to the Board of Education by the Department of Education on January 13th of this year, the number of licensed teachers working in our state's public schools has fallen by a couple of percentage points. And in its annual report on strategic plan indicators in that same presentation, the department noted that as of October 1st, 2023, there were actually over 800 teaching positions that were filled by educators who fall into various categories of unlicensed teachers. While the DOE may only be actively recruiting for a couple of hundred positions, that is almost certainly because many positions are currently filled by unlicensed teachers and emergency hires. Passing this bill would definitely help to retain the teachers we need to help Hawaii's children succeed. We know the teacher shortage is still real, and we hope that you will pass this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Caulfield, for being here and for your disclosure. Next, we have Democratic Party for Hawaii Education Caucus providing testimony and support. We have Democratic Party of Hawaii Labor Caucus with testimony and support. We have HGEA providing comments. HSTA providing testimony and support in person. Apologies.
No, it's our fault for submitting late testimony. Apologies for that. Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, also Tue, President of the HSTA. I will note that longevity steps, as indicated here on the salary schedule, were phased out of the Unit 5 collective bargaining agreement at the start of the 1989-1990 school year. With regards to Deputy Nasser's comments, Article 20 of the current Unit 5 collective bargaining agreement has language that states, the parties recognize that annual incremental step movements are a viable recruiting and retention tool. Teachers who are not at the top of the salary schedule and who have effective evaluations shall move to the next highest step of the corresponding class at the beginning of each school year. Annual incremental step movements are subject to funding. This bill, if passed and funded, will satisfy that last sentence and go a long way towards recruitment and retention of Hawaii public school educators. As such, HSTA asks this committee to support the bill. Mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have testimony from the Hawaii State Youth Commission offering testimony in support via Zoom.
Aloha Chair, Aloha Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the House Committee on Education. My name is Hanalei, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hawaii State Youth Commission. The Hawaii State Youth Commission is in strong support of HB 1653. As mentioned in our written testimony, one of the most critical issues in Hawaii's current education system is the teacher shortage and retainment rates. The significance of teachers' role in the future of Hawaii's youth has been long overlooked, represented by salaries that are among the lowest in the nation. As the Youth Commission recognizes the importance of education in facilitating the next generation of thinkers, innovators, and leaders, we recognize the importance of teachers who guide the path for students to do so. We must work to ensure that teachers are offered financial stability to support all they do for our keiki. Providing automatic step increases in teacher and educational offer salaries is a crucial initiative to filling the teacher shortage and retaining high-quality teachers for all future generations of learners in Hawaii. Therefore, the Youth Commission strongly urges the committee to pass HB 1653. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony. We also have individual testimony from Mr. Fitzpatrick from Maui in person. I don't see him. I don't see Fitz. Okay.
Hello?
No, go ahead, Fitz.
Hello? Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. I'm on Zoom, I'm on Maui.
Okay, we see you.
Aloha, Honorable Chair Woodson and the Education Committee. Thank you for all your hard work to advance schools our cake deserve. Several years ago, you guys passed the compression bill because teachers could never get that annual step increase. This last contract, I was hopeful that we'd have it put into our contract. But like OSA said, they keep telling us there's no money in order to give us annual step increases. So I'm not sure how we break this cycle where we get our annual step increases. Last year at Maiawana, I had 2 teachers from Chicago, and about 2 months in, I told them, hey, you're not gonna get it next year. And they were like, what, we don't get annual step increases? And they considered moving back to Chicago. It's pretty much a brand new year. Well, a brand new year, but a new school year. I'm at a brand new school, Kulani Hakoi, and we are dealing with the same problems of not having qualified teachers in our classroom. So when we started the school year, we have 2 math positions at our school, and we didn't have 1 math teacher. So we had to take teachers from other positions that were supposed to teach other things and put them into the math position. So imagining opening up the school year without a math department. And that is what we're talking about. And we need to do everything we can do to retain teachers. So I really hope you guys pass this because it helps our students. At Lokilani, there's a lot of vacancies as well. 2 weeks ago, one of my students, Cassius, it was kind of a rowdy class that day. But he was like, Mister, like, why are they being so rowdy? You're the best science teacher I've ever had. I was like, no, I'm just mediocre joking around with him. But he's like, no, Mister, like, you put everything into us and you know what you're talking about, and all my other science teachers dipped out on us. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a teacher shortage crisis, is our students not having teachers in their classrooms. And we need to have really good pay so we can recruit the best teachers in the nation. So thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me testify via Zoom. And let's get this fixed. And I heard the other two testifiers saying, oh, well, maybe this is against bargaining rights and collective bargaining. So I don't know if this bill will be against that and be thrown out, but at the very least, maybe we could put the money into the budget. So that way the money is automatically in the budget and they can never come to us. And the guy on the 5th floor, the executive, can never come to us saying, sorry, our pockets are empty. We cannot pay you guys. So that is alternative that I see if they decide this bill is not good. So thank you so much for your time and all your efforts, and let's get this fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. We also have individual testimony from Fenton Lee in support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? I have a question for BNF. Is BNF still here? Thank you for being here. So I think people assume that if departments submit testimony opposition, it's a bad thing, but we really want to know, what your unfiltered opinion is. That's also important for the process. And so per your testimony, BNF is not in support of paying teachers, increasing teacher pay automatically year over year. You are not in support of that.
We are not in support of any measure that we believe infringes on the collective bargaining process. However, as stated earlier, if this measure, in fact, is allowed within a provision of Chapter 89, we would defer to the Office of Collective Bargaining.
You're familiar that the statute used to articulate automatic pay increases in the past? And so is it the department's position that if, in fact, automatic pay increases is best practice globally for teachers and for EOs, that you're not going to support it?
Our only issue with the measure is that we believe, upon reading it, that it infringed on the collective bargaining process. But we don't have a stance on the other, on the larger concept of the bill.
But if it's best practice, then why wouldn't you support it?
Why wouldn't we? So I just want to clarify, our only issue with this measure is that we believe it infringes on the CB process, but we do defer to the Office of Collective Bargaining on their stance and to confirm that that is indeed true. Yeah, and that's really our only issue. We have, we're not getting involved in the larger concept or subject matter, the broader concept of pay.
Then respectfully, that testimony is not really helpful if that's your position, because we're trying to craft policy based upon what actually works as it relates to systems. So your department, when you go out to New York or other locations to reissue bonds, you are operating on best practices, right? Or else you're not going to renegotiate better terms for the state. So why would you not want that for the DOE and our teachers?
So you're absolutely correct. We do operate on best practices relating to finances, municipal markets, bond structuring, all of that kind of stuff. We defer to DOE, we defer to Office of Collective Bargaining, and we defer really to the lawmakers and the governor to determine this type of issue related to education, because we aren't education experts by any means.
Okay. And if you don't adhere to those best practices, your result is not what you desire. Is that correct? Per your best
Just in
practices
general?
for receiving favorable bond ratings and how you operate the state.
Yeah, I would say that's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Pruso.
I have a question for BNF. Sorry. Just a follow-up question. So one of the last lines of your testimony articulated for us that you recognize that the legislature has the authority to set the scope for collective bargaining. Yes. And we did this when we set up the process in HRS.
Yes.
And we also have the power to change the scope.
Exactly.
So why would this be outside of that process of establishing the scope of collective bargaining?
So We are recommending that the process in Chapter 89 be followed unless the legislature decides to amend that process.
I feel like we're locked in a logical circle because we are looking at amending the process by changing the scope to include annual steps. So that would be a change of scope. So that is within our power, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and sorry for any confusion, but I think I understand what you're saying.
Thank you for being here. Any other questions, members? Okay, please go ahead.
DOE. I'm just wondering if we can get a little bit of clarification. One of the testifiers mentioned the discrepancy in how people are viewing data on how many teachers were short in the state. Can you talk about why within your folks' presentation to the DOE or to the BOE, you're talking about there's still 800 unlicensed positions, but the governor is saying that we've dropped teacher shortage vacancies by 50%. Something's wrong, and I think that that kind of uncertainty doesn't help us craft really good policy.
Thank you for the question. So in our previous presentation that we just did to the Board of Education in January, we were doing some comparison data of what it looked like in 2019 prior to the pandemic, and then kind of what it looks like currently now at this point. There was a slight drop from 96 to approximately 95% of those teachers that were unlicensed. However, in that data, it also showed that there was a small percentage, I think it was about 1.8% of them that were in the process of getting their license. So if you actually combine those two data sets together, the numbers do come out to approximately the same. But we do have, it's in statute where we can hire individuals unlicensed for up to 3 years while they're working on their degree. To be able to become licensed in the state. Those numbers have remained quite consistent over the past 5 years at this point right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you.
Chair, can I
Thank you. Go ahead.
follow-up request?
Yes.
Can I ask that you, in future presentations to the Board of Education, make a clean distinction between folks who are in the process of seeking licensure and those who have achieved licensure? That is a really important distinction.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next proposal. We have HB 1614 with regards to national board certification for our teachers. Compensation increase. First we have DOE offering comments.
Thank you, Chair. Department of Education sent in its written testimony offering comments, and of course, we're very supportive for any increase, but we put it in a testimony. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for being here. We have EOEL providing testimony and support.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, I'm Yuko Arikawa-Cross, Director of the Executive Office on Early Learning. We stand at our written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Office of Collective Bargaining in opposition. Not here. Hawaii Public Charter School Commission offering testimony in support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson and Vice Chair LaChica and members of the committee. We offer or stand on our written testimony with comments for this measure and look forward to working with folks to get this taken care of.
Thank you. Offering comments. Next, we have the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board providing testimony in support via in person.
Good afternoon. Mitsuhiga Licensing Specialist for Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. We offer our testimony in support. We believe incentivizing our quality teachers, our licensed teachers, is working, and we further incentivizing them by increasing the amount will help attract and retain our best and brightest. We want more teachers to become national board certified. We want to recruit them as mentors for our new registered teacher apprenticeship program that we're working on, and therefore this would help incentivize our nationally board certified teachers who are doing a fantastic job. We want to keep them, we want to get more. Thank you.
Thank you for being here in your new capacity. Next, we have HSTA providing testimony and support in person.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, also Tue, President of the HSTA. Similar to the Standards Board, according to National Board of Professional Teaching Standards, Hawaii currently has 789 total National Board certified teachers, with 345 more pursuing this prestigious distinction. MBCT candidates go through a rigorous process of self-reflection on their teaching practice, often organized into cohorts to get through it all. It's often referred to as the most effective professional development that a teacher can go through. It'd be wonderful if more of our teachers were incentivized to pursue MBCT status so that our keiki can benefit from the experience and expertise that their teachers will gain as a result. With that, HSTA asks for your support. Mahalo.
Thank you for being here. Next on Zoom, we have individual testimony from Mr. Fitzpatrick offering testimony in support.
Hello, Chair Woodson and the Education Committee. My name is John Fitzpatrick, and I am in support of this. I currently am not certified in this, but I've been looking at doing it for 3 or 4 years, but the process is very tedious according to teachers that have already gone through it, and super challenging, but everyone that's gone through the program says it's really beneficial to their teaching practice and to helping our students gain all these skills that they've lost throughout the COVID pandemic. So I definitely would like to do it in the short term, in the next couple years, and with a increase, it would definitely be more beneficial. Or if it's going from $5,000 to $15,000, it would definitely be an incentive for teachers like myself to go through the program. And $5,000 doesn't go as far as it used to go. So I believe this bonus went into effect in 2004. And currently it's almost 20 years later, so increasing this bonus would make it worthwhile for teachers. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We also have testimony from the Democratic Party of Hawaii in person in support.
Oh, yeah. Stand on our testimony and support them.
Thank you so much. We have testimony from the Democratic Party of Hawaii Education Caucus, also in support. Democratic Party of Hawaii Labor Caucus, in support, and individual testimony from about 6 people, all in support. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Is there another testifier via Zoom? Please go ahead.
Hi, mahalo. Thank you, Chair Woodson, and mahalo for hearing this measure. I am Christine Russo, and I'm testifying in strong support of this measure. I earned my National Board certification in December of 2022, and I initially began pursuing certification back in 2017, 2018, when I heard about board certification from a colleague. She kind of went over the benefits, including the $5,000 bonus. And, this incentivized me to go ahead and make the leap. It is very rigorous, and it took me several years to certify. Increasing the bonus to $15,000 would be a wonderful way to attract more teachers to get their, to pursue National Board certification. Right now, we're 30th in the nation. And I would really like to see Hawaii move up to increasing its nationally board certified teachers. Evidence shows that students taught by a nationally board certified teacher have significant gains compared to those taught by non-certified teachers. So I would really appreciate your support for this measure, and mahalo again.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? See none. Members, any questions? Pretty straightforward. Okay. See none. Moving on to the next bill. We have HB 1654 with regards to DOE and workplace learning. First up we have is DOE offering comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, members of the committee. I'm Tammy Chun, Deputy Superintendent, standing on our written testimony providing comments.
Thank you, Dr. Chung, for being here. We have testimony from the AG's office offering comments.
Good afternoon again. Ann Horichi from the Department of the Attorney General. First, we wanted to note that the establishment of the program, we suggested that it be moved from the definitions section to a new subsection. Also, the bill currently, as we noted in our testimony, the state constitution provides that there should be no grant of public money or property made without or except pursuant to standards provided by law, and the bill as written does not have such standards. In our testimony, we've provided draft standards, and we'd be happy to work with the DOE and the legislature on drafting appropriate standards for the measure. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have DLIR offering comments.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, members of the committee, David Rodriguez with the DLIR. We stand on our written comments, but would like to note our opposition to the sub-minimum language in the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. We received that testimony. Next, we have State Council for Developmental Disabilities offering testimony and support in person.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. First off, I'd like to apologize for our testimony. Our template, and I addressed it wrong, so I apologize for that. We'll get it correct next time. We're in strong support of this measure. I'd just like to emphasize how interns have been very beneficial to our workforce. The direct service professionals are very short-staffed in Hawaii as well as nationwide. Last year, we did a small pilot project for interns on the island of Kauai and Maui, where we had high school students come in, learn how to learn about our population, working with people with developmental disabilities and seniors, and it was a great success. 25% of the interns became a direct service professional, and I just wanted to say what a very positive outcome it is to have internships. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have testimony from the Hawaii Primary Care Association providing testimony and support. Present, we have Hawaii Kids Can offering testimony and support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing HB 1654. I'm David Sun Miyashiro from Hawaii Kids Can. We stand on our strong support in written testimony with a few notes. It's clear that Hawaii's affordability crisis is a key focus of this legislative session, from housing to the cost of living. Make no mistake about it, supporting our youth to survive and thrive in Hawaii must be part of any solution. Work-based learning provides an opportunity for students to build their skills and connections in collaboration with our diverse community of local employers. HB 1654 ensures that more employers and students can participate in these partnerships. By supporting employers, especially small to medium-sized businesses, with grants, they can reinvest funding back into compensating interns and providing high-quality supervision and training. This will incentivize new employers to support work-based learning, thereby ensuring students can find placements that match their passion and curiosity. Hawaii has a number of work-based learning intermediaries that can help facilitate these grants. We also note that existing internship programs through agencies like DLIR are only available to those with a high school diploma or equivalent. Each one of these connections represents a brighter future where our youth can achieve financial stability and contribute to Hawaii for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Miyashiro. Next, we have Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii providing testimony support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, members of the committee. Sherry Menor here with the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. We will stand on our written testimony and available for questions. But I did want to emphasize that 30 U.S. states and territories now offer incentives to businesses hiring, and a study found that 70% of interns received a job offer after the conclusion of their program. So we believe that internships provide a clear path to stable paying jobs. Mahalo.
Thank you for being here, Mrs. Menor. Next, we have Watanabe Floral INC providing testimony and support. Not here. We have Issei Consulting LLC providing testimony and support in person if they're here or on Zoom. Next, we have Kona Kohala Chamber of Commerce providing testimony and support via Zoom.
I'm here.
Please go ahead.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair LaChica, and members of the House Committee on Education. My name is Wendy Laros, and I'm the President and CEO of the Kona Kohala Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber strongly supports House Bill 1654 relating to education. Our organization works to enhance the quality of life for our community through a strong, sustainable economy on Hawaii Island. Last week, the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii, in partnership with neighbor island chambers, including ours, launched the 2030 Blueprint for Hawaii, which is a data-based action plan to shape Hawaii's economic future. The report identified outmigration and brain drain as challenges that must be overcome due to the impacts on small businesses and job growth. In our organization, we have 465 members, and nearly 70% of our members are small businesses with 25 or fewer employees. The grant proposed in this bill aims to encourage more small and medium-sized businesses in Hawaii to offer work-based learning opportunities to students through internships. This will help students acquire in-demand skills while ensuring that local employers have a diverse pool of skilled employees. We must work together to develop our workforce and provide pathways for future generations to succeed in Hawaii. We ask that you vote in favor of House Bill 1654. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have HSTA providing testimony in support. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Hawaii Food Industry Association providing testimony in support via Zoom.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Alexis Chapman for HFIA. We stand on our testimony in support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have individual testimony from Erica Nakanishi providing testimony in support via Zoom. Not present. Thank you. We have individual testimony from Bosman Consulting and Support. Not present. West Kauai Business Professional Association providing testimony in support. Hawaii Chamber of Commerce providing testimony in support. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Hawaii providing testimony in support. Maui Chamber of Commerce providing testimony in support. Kapolei Chamber of Commerce providing testimony in support. And we have about 6 individuals all providing testimony in support. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Okay, go ahead, Rep. Russo.
For DLR. Aloha.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate the intent of this measure, but I'm a little bit concerned. It feels like an externalization of labor costs by the employer. And I'm wondering if HLIR has considered, I heard the question about the legality of the use of public funds for private entities, because it would be precisely the use of public funds to go towards private entities for educational purposes. So those two issues are concerning to me, and I'm wondering if you've considered the first one, and if you could talk a little bit more about the second one.
I'm probably not the one to answer that question because I'm with the Wage Standards Division, and we were just commenting on the child labor law and then the minimum wage. So I'm probably not the right person to ask that question or answer that question.
Are you the right person?
Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay, well, we'll just leave that.
Back.
If you don't want to address it, we can just leave it hanging, but those are my questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative. Members, any other questions? Mr. Miyashiro, if you can come up, please. Thank you for being here. When you look at some of the high-performing public school systems globally, I think of like Switzerland, I think of Singapore. They align this type of curriculum with their students and marketplace. Singapore, obviously, they score amongst the highest, if not the highest, year over year when the assessment is done on the PISA test, which is equivalent to our country's NAEP tests. So there probably is some value in looking at this type of delivery system. Can you explain as to how this particular proposal will help connect business sector with needed marketplace needs and tie it to formalized curriculum?
Thank you so much for the question, Chair. I would want to recognize the great work that's already been done by Superintendent Hayashi, both in his time as principal at Waipahu High School and continuing on as superintendent. I think these are pressing issues for our school system and for our local community. In fact, I believe there are now 13 different CTE pathways being offered in the state, which is extremely exciting. I think by formalizing a lot more of these partnerships, leveraging the intermediaries that already exist in our community, organizations such as KUPU that are well known and respected, I think certainly we can bring more of those employers to the table. I serve on the board for one of the academies at Campbell High School, and I do know that bringing more employers into the fold to respond to the student demand is a challenge. You know, it takes real time and effort to provide students with the kind of quality experience that I think we expect, and so I think this bill just tries to meet those folks halfway.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay. Rip Martin.
I have a question, if you wouldn't mind staying. Sure. What's not clear from this bill is do the grants cover the entire salary that these students would be earning? So what is the situation in the internships that you're talking about? Is it just money in and right back out to the students, or are the businesses also paying the students part of their salary? Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Personally, I believe every internship should be paid. I think it's a fundamental equity challenge. I do note that the specific funding request in the bill is blank, so I think that would be a question perhaps later for the Finance Committee. But in terms of how the funds can be spent, in my reading of the bill, it does not specify if it has to go to the student or if it has to go perhaps to the supervisor who's supporting that student. That might be something to figure out in the administration of the bill and something that applicants can request of those intermediaries. But I don't believe it's written into the bill specifically.
Chair, if I can ask for clarification. Yeah, I understand it's not in this bill. I'm asking how the internships that you were talking about that are already ongoing, how they function.
I think it depends on the kinds of internships. You know, when you think about a large system like Queens Healthcare, you know, certainly there are processes in place to provide that kind of supervision. I would like to see, you know, again, all of those interns get paid. So I don't know for a fact if every student participating in a career pathway in Hawaii does get paid, but I think it is certainly aspirational.
Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill. We have HB 1537, Proposed Con-Em Residential Investment Property. First up, we have is the University of Hawaii in support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Ms. Vice Chair, members. University of Calvert Young, Vice President for the University of Hawaii System. University has submitted testimony. We are supportive of this measure as it provides a potential additional source of supplemental funding for public education in Hawaii, including the University of Hawaii. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Young. Quick recess. reconvening for our hearing. We have testimony also offering comments from the Department of Education.
Chair, Vice Chair, Gerdo Tuguro, Deputy Superintendent. First of all, I apologize for our submission of late testimony. I apologize. Department stands on its written testimony. We are in support for public education and another funding source. I'm sure there'll be a lot of additional dialogue and process to figure out the process to collect and distribute. But we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have testimony from the Tax Foundation Hawaii via Zoom offering comments.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We have provided written comments. We do note that the current bill is very similar to the one that was or the one that was attempted to be placed before the voters in 2018. The Hawaii Supreme Court struck it down as being too vague in a number of respects. The citation of the opinion is 431 Pacific 3rd, 1228. This is in 2018. And we think the current version is vague as well. One problem that we see is that the bill does not apprise voters that this is a tax. It doesn't apprise voters what is going to be the basis of the tax and how it's going to be calculated. So we think there's a lot of open-ended or a lot of loose ends, let's say, in the proposed constitutional amendment, which could be abused, not perhaps by yourselves, but by maybe a future legislature. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have testimony in person from HSTA offering testimony and support.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Lachika, Osutui President HSTA. Asking for your support. Increasingly, Hawaii is becoming the playground for the mega wealthy. It's unconscionable that as they harvest the benefits and splendors of these lands and what they offer, they don't also give back to our schools, which are falling apart and not providing our keiki with the schools that they deserve. Educating our keiki is everyone's kuleana. While the counties may feel that this is taking from pots of money that should be exclusive to them, that ignores the fact that the state has to support the counties in numerous ways as well. We cannot remain siloed when it comes to investing in our future of Hawaii, the keiki o kaina. Ultimately, this would put the decision on whether our keiki are worthy of such investment in the hands of voters of this state. The legislature was brave to put something similar on the ballot in 2018. Since then, the rich have only gotten richer, and the struggles of the working class have only been exacerbated. Now is the time to put this on the ballot once again. HSTA asks for your support. Mahalo.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have testimony from CARES in person in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young testifying in strong support. COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges of disproportionately affected students of color and students from low income, those below the poverty threshold, the marginalized, and the vulnerable. The federal government injected funds through the American Rescue Plan Act and highlighted the importance of funding for public education. And COVID-19 highlighted the issues of chronic underfunding in public education, which undermines the state's goals of providing a quality education to all Hawaii students and to having an educated workforce. This policy takes action by proposing a constitutional amendment to get an extra funding source from the counties through real property tax. Real property valued at $3 million or more will basically have a financial tax credit which will go towards the school systems. Hawaii is the only state to not have a property tax to support the education system. In all jurisdictions beyond Hawaii, real property tax plays an essential role in supporting public school education. 5 years ago, a Senate Bill 2922 called for a constitutional amendment to create a real property tax to support schools. However, when it got on the ballot, the justices ruled that the ballot language was vague and ambiguous. It did not state explicitly the intention of the funds. So Hawaii did not get a new source of potential funding through real property tax for school systems. For this time around, if this law makes it all the way, the constitutional amendment needs to be explicit. Taxes are sometimes levied to discourage bad behavior, for example, smoking and drinking. We call them sin taxes. But the most important reason to levy taxes is to raise revenue to pay for public services. The tax is the price of the services consumed. Public service includes public schools. A proposed constitutional amendment for an additional real estate property tax will be beneficial to all schools and the University of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have testimony from the Realtors, Hawaii Association of Realtors, in opposition, in person.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Garcia from the Hawaii Realtors. We appreciate the intent of this measure, however, we must respectfully oppose. While Hawaii Realtors does support education, we are deeply concerned that an additional property tax surcharge for residential investment property will add to the cost of housing and rentals. There is a misconception that such taxation solely affects the wealthy or luxury properties only. However, this also directly impacts workforce housing, including multifamily units and walk-ups in our state. The repercussions of any surcharge on property tax could be passed on to these renters, further adding to the financial burden of residents in our state already grappling with the high costs of living and of housing. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have testimony via Zoom from Parents for Public Schools of Hawaii, offering testimony of support. Not present. We have individual testimony from John Fitzpatrick from Maui, in support via Zoom.
Hello, Honorable Chair Whitson and the Education Committee. It's great seeing you. You guys are so small on the Zoom thing. Can't wait to see you guys in person on Friday. But I am in strong support of this. We did try to get it passed in 2018. If it passed, maybe we would be able to have EAs get more than an 8.5% pay raise. Maybe I would have had 2 math teachers at my school on the first day of school. Maybe all of our students would have a really highly qualified teacher in their classroom to help them recover from the learning loss of COVID. When I drive by Kahului, especially at Christmas time, Kahului Airport, there's, we count like 48 private jets on the runway. It kind of infuriates me, the fact that there's so much wealth that comes to visit Maui, and they just come in and they leave, and we're not investing in our public schools, and our children are not getting the schools our cake deserve. Right now at Kulani Hikoi, we were just told that we can't order the other half of the furniture next year, that our freshmen next year are gonna need to sit on, because the money was spent on something else. So it would be nice if every single one of our schools looked like Kamehameha or Punahou or Iolani, and we could have a higher weighted student ratio formula, so each kid got $22,000, and we could lower our class sizes and provide more teachers. And the way I see it is getting millionaires and billionaires to invest in our public education and demand it through this surcharge would help us get there. It wouldn't be the total solution, but it would definitely help fill some of these pukas and get us there. Unfortunately, the last one, the language got changed right at the last second, and the Supreme Court deemed that we couldn't understand it, but I think the current language should be understandable by the common person. It is going to take a huge lift, so we do need everyone, even realtors. You guys deserve to have kids go to the best schools in the nation. So we need our realtors to change their mind on it. I understand you guys donate to my classroom. You guys did this year, but we need these millionaires and billionaires to invest in our schools. Since then, rents have increased dramatically, and that wasn't because of this. The rents increased because landlords increased, or because there's Airbnbs in our neighborhoods. So it's taking away from local people being able to get housing. This bill is so you guys can draft legislation in order to come up with good legislation that would maybe prevent rents from going up. So you could give tax cuts to people that give low rents. So there's so much that could be done with this bill that could help the common person, like a teacher, a firefighter, a nurse, maybe even a struggling realtor. So I strongly support this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. We also have testimony from the Democratic Party of Hawaii providing testimony in support.
Hi again, I'm Chris Caulfield representing the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support of this bill, and I just wanted to touch on a few key points. First, our schools are historically underfunded. Last year, the DOE's operating budget request was cut by over $100 million, while its CIP request was cut by hundreds of millions of dollars for each year of the biennium. Those cuts directly harm the ability of our students to reach their full potential. Moreover, Hawaii's public schools have been historically underfunded. Archival letters from plantation owners show that the state did not direct property tax revenue to public schools generations ago because they were very concerned about creating a well-funded education system in which workers would become educated enough to overturn the exploitative plantation economy. This bill isn't just about education, it's about controlling the housing market speculation that worsens our housing crisis. We note that the Hawaii residents face the second highest housing costs in the nation at more than twice the national average. Researchers who authored the National Low-Income Housing Coalition's Out of Reach 2023 report found that a full-time worker needs to earn $41.83 an hour to afford a two-bedroom apartment at fair market value. That's $87,000 a year. Honolulu's experienced a 67% increase in fair market rent between 2005 and 2015. Average rent for a two-bedroom unit has far surpassed $2,000 in Honolulu in recent years. In 2018, I was a government relations consultant with the Hawaii State Teachers Association. I worked very heavily on the original version of the Con-Am with Chair Woodson. The 2018 Con-Am was invalidated by the Supreme Court for having language that was too vague, but the court did not invalidate the concept. They only noted the language needed to be clear enough for voters to grasp. And there are key differences between the proposal in front of you today and the 2018 proposal. This proposal includes a property value threshold. It specifies that the surcharge would apply to residential property, and that was not included in 2018. It contains a homeowner's exemption. That was not included in 2018. So there's all of this language that's in this proposal that was not contained in the final version of the 2019 Con-Am that clarifies exactly what we're talking about and should make it clear enough for voters to grasp. And finally, I just want to say that the counties have opposed all versions of this Con-Am going back to 2018, but I find their opposition to be absolutely hypocritical. Over the last decade, the state has generously given the counties the ability to establish a surcharge on the GET and establish their own transient accommodation tax rates so they can raise revenue for public services. This proposal is fundamentally no different. County revenue would not be impacted in any way by this Con-Am. Just as state revenue has not been jeopardized by the GAT and TAT powers that lawmakers have given to the counties. Our children deserve highly qualified teachers, excellent school facilities, and comprehensive support services to uplift their aspirations. Passing this Con-Am is another step in delivering the schools our keiki deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have testimony on Zoom for Christine Russo in support.
Yes, aloha. Thank you, Chair, for hearing this measure. I testify in strong support. I'm a teacher at James Campbell High School, and at the school level, I can tell you that we're struggling to fill positions. We have a number of emergency hires. We talk a lot about this consistent drop in math scores among our students, yet the number of qualified math teachers in our schools, or specifically at Campbell, I can speak to Campbell, and I believe this is a trend across the whole state, but we don't have qualified teachers teaching our kids. And the effects of this are compounded over time. So that's just one thing. Another thing we talk about, how can we create safe schools? And we look at, for example, at Campbell High School, our security. Sometimes we don't have sufficient security, and they're the ones who are out there helping monitor the campus, and student safety is number one. And then looking at statewide initiatives, for example, universal public pre-K, we need a funding source for that. The intent is there at the state level. However, we need the funding to truly make that come to fruition. I could continue on and on about the various things we need funding, increased funding for at the state level as well. But for now, I would just like to say I appreciate you hearing the measure again, and I hope that you will support this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We also have individual testimony from about 20 people, all in support, 2 testimonies in opposition, and 1 individual offering comments. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill? Seeing none, members, any questions?
I have a question for the Realtors Association. Aloha, Rep. Aloha. Thanks for being here. Because I agree with some of the other testimony that mentioned that, you are a really important part of this conversation, even as far back as 2018. And I noted in your testimony, at least your oral testimony, that you're concerned about the impact on affordable housing in multi-unit housing dwellings or residential properties.
Correct. For instance, walk-ups such as in Makiki or Kalihi, right, where you have buildings that are 3, 4, 5 stories. Those could be owned by one property owner, and then they rent out.
Correct.
And so
I hadn't actually finished my question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just wondering if you had read the bill.
Yes.
Okay, so on page 8, about line 6, it says, provided that the surcharge shall not apply to any affordable housing development that is subject to a regulatory agreement with the state or county. So I just wanted to reassure you that while there may be luxury apartments that are not exempt from this surcharge, if those buildings are valued at $3 million or more, they would definitely be subject to it. Affordable housing, multi-unit residential properties, if they're not owner-occupied, would be subject to it. But if they are owner-occupied, they would not be subject to it. So just for your clarification, I wanted to make sure you had seen that page.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Rep. Peruso, for pointing that out. And so it would be a matter of understanding which properties would qualify for that affordable housing exemption and which properties are not, considered affordable housing as defined in that bill.
I think we have a really clear definition at the state level, which I think is far too broad in terms of what qualifies as affordable housing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
No testimony from the AG, but I wonder if either HSTA or Tax Foundation of Hawaii, do you feel that this bill covers what was addressed as challenges by Senate Bill 2922 in 2018 that was invalidated by the Hawaii State Supreme Court? If you feel that this bill adequately, I think it was the Democratic Party of Hawaii that had mentioned that it does address the deficiencies addressed in 2018. Do you feel that the way it's written that we would avoid, what had happened in 2018?
Also to HSTA, I do, but powerful forces are going to be out there trying to stymie this. So as clear as we can make it so that we avoid that outcome again would be much appreciated.
Mr. Yamachika, are you still online?
Yes, I am. And I do need to express the contrary opinion. Let me read from the Supreme Court's opinion in that case to let you know what I mean. The Supreme Court said, to fully appreciate the scope of the proposed change, a voter would need to know that the Hawaii Constitution provides independent taxing powers to the counties, that the Constitution currently allows only the counties to tax real property to the exclusion of all other government entities, and that the proposed amendment would make an exception to this exclusive authority of the counties by granting the state concurrent authority to tax what is presumably a subset of real property. None of this information is conveyed by the ballot question, which is instead likely to leave the average lay voter with the false impression that a vote in favor of the amendment would allow investment in real property to be taxed in the first instance. So I've compared the ballot question in this bill with the one in the in the 2018 litigation. It's almost the same. So I don't think anything that the Supreme Court has complained about in the passage that I read is being addressed in the current bill.
Okay, mahalo. Democratic Party of Hawaii, could you kindly address the same question?
Yeah, thank you so much. So there's three key differences, and they're the ones that I enumerated in my testimony, which is this question contains a property value threshold of $3 million for which it would apply. There was no property value threshold at all in the 2018 Con-Am, which was actually one of the sticking points for the Supreme Court. This bill also specifies that it will apply to residential investment property. The term that was used in 2018 was investment real property, which was sort of a new term of art that had been created. And there was a lot of conversation about what real property of any kind would be taxed. Would that be commercial? Would that be residential? Would that be, whatever else could be covered? And it had no language in the bill itself, in the text of the constitutional amendment, pertaining to affordable housing exemptions, which this bill also does contain in the language of the amendment itself. And then the third key distinction is this bill also contains in the question a homeowner's exemption, and that wasn't contained in 2018 either. So that's also something that's been taken from legislation that had been adopted at the county level with regard to other housing policies that is sort of directly reflective of, or is directly mirrored in this proposal. And I think those key differences distinguish this from the 2018 proposal that was shot down by the Supreme Court.
Mahalo. And then quick follow-up question. Thank you for your testimony and a lot of the data pieces that you put in. Have you tried to look at any analysis on what the financial impact investment would be, like what that would look like in terms of how many properties would be affected by the $3 million and the definition of residential investment property?
I have someplace the number of properties that we estimate would be impacted. The question that we get derived from that is what's the revenue that's going to be generated?
Right.
And the estimate is about $40 to $60 million a year at the current threshold, the $3 million threshold.
Statewide?
Statewide.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, moving on to the next proposal. Vice Chair.
Okay. I will be taking on temporarily as Chair steps out for a little bit. So we're moving on to House Bill 2402. First up, we have Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kurt Otaguro, Deputy Superintendent. Department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. It's part of the department's administrative package. Happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Mahalo. Next up, we have Hawaii Food Industry Association.
Good afternoon again, Chair. I'm Alexis Chapman for HFIA, or Vice Chair rather. We stand on our testimony in support, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, we are moving on to our final bill on the agenda, House Bill 2403. First up, we have Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Aloha, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Keopu Relitz with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and we stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. Mahalo.
Hello. Next, we have HSTA.
Hello, Vice Chair. Tue, President HSTA. Hawaii Public Charter School enrollment has grown at 4% faster than projected, with charter school funding based on the proportionality of their enrollment when compared to the department. They need this critical funding so that their students can be provided the services that they are equally entitled to as their counterpart students in the Haido schools. HSTA asks for your support. Mahalo.
Hello. And then finally, we have Angela Melody Young in support. Okay, not present. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify here or online? Oh, Department of Education, yes.
Hi, aloha, Vice Chair Lachika and members of the committee. Brian Hallett, Chief Financial Officer. I'm testifying on behalf of the department. The department, I apologize, our testimony was submitted late. I believe you have hard copies. We did email yesterday. We have to go back and figure out what went wrong on our end for why you didn't get it. But we ask for your support on this. This is part of the department's administrative package, the governor's package of bills. We ask for your support. Thank you.
Okay. Mahalo. Anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none. Members, any questions? Questions? Okay. No questions. Can I break recess? Okay. We're going to recess. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking it out. Reconvening for decision making on a dozen plus proposals. First up, we have is HB 1648 regarding school psychologist licensure. Members, there are several moving parts with regard to this particular proposal. There were a lot of professional and otherwise specialist groups that had varying and competing concerns, and so the recommendation is to change the content of this proposal to a working group to include Department of Education, DCCA, AG's office, the Hawaii Association of School Psychologists, and the National Association of School Psychologists. The difference is that we want the working group to recommend actionable steps or potential or proposed legislation so that we can take actually take action next year in 2025. and we want the report to be due to the legislature 20 days prior to opening day. Besides that, defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. There's just too many moving parts and too many pieces to smooth it right now, but we want action on this by next year. Also, members in the committee report, we want to make a notation that we are the only state in the entire country that does not have a pathway to school licensure. So that tells you something as well. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Okay, members, voting on House Bill 1648, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Capella?
Aye.
Representative Martin?
Aye.
Representative Martinez?
Aye.
Representative Matayoshi? Excused. Representative Mizuno?
Aye.
Representative Peruso?
Aye.
Representative Quinlan? Excused. Representative Todd? Representative Garcia?
Aye.
Chair, your recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1649, establishing a national board certification incentive program for school psychologists. Recommendation is to pass this, defecting the date, July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1649, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absences of Representative Quinlan and Representative Matayoshi, are there any members voting no? Are there any members voting with reservation? Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 2774, DOE and local ag products. There's been a lot of work that has went into this proposal and the next. The recommendation is to pass this with the HD1, defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2774, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absences of Representative Matayoshi and Rep. Quinlan, are there any members voting with reservations or noes? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 2620, Department of Education and Procurement exemptions regarding local school products. We'd like to pass this with the HD1, defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2620, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absences of Representative Matayoshi and Rep. Quinlan, any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendations adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 1969, DOE and establishment of fruit trees. Members, I would like to pass this out, deleting the term fruit so it's more broad, technical amendments, and in section 2, line 7, change the shall to a may per DOE's recommendation, defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1969, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absences of Representative Matayoshi and Rep. Quinlan, any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendations adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 1651, Department of Education Harassment and Worker Safety. Members, I would like to accept AG's well thought out suggestions. First is found on page 2, line 9 and 10. We want the components of the proposal to comport to HRS 711, which is where the harassment provisions are housed in statute. That's just for consistency reasons. Also on page 3, lines 4 and 5, and on page 4, lines 15. Also per AG's recommendation, we want to accept their amendment as well. Members, the only significant difference is it does say that the department would report through this particular provision only instances of alleged harassment that involves potential threat of physical harm. So that is the only significant difference. Besides that, the language basically reads the same. Also, members, per AG's recommendation, We want to accept their proposed change to subsection D12 and C. That's, again, just to conform with existing statute as it relates to harassment. In section 6, found on page 4, lines 12 and 13, members, we want it to also be explicit that the department is allowed to defend a state employee within certain constructs of the stated law, but the department is not authorized to affirm any claims on behalf of the state employee. Also, members, we want to incorporate the Attorney General's recommendation to make a connection between the DOE employees and that particular employee being harassed. That's, again, for clarification purposes. And we want to replicate all these proposed changes in 302A and fold it into 302D, and that's to make it consistent with also charter school law. We want to make that explicitly clear per the Commission's recommendation. Technical, non-substantive changes and defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. And also, in closing, members, in the committee report, we want to make reference to the fact that parents and guardians still do have the right to share their concerns. We want them to share their concerns, but they have to do so within the construct of the law. Questions, comments, concerns?
Sure.
Yes.
I'll be casting a no vote on this. I do support the intent of the bill. I think 99% is great. My only concern was the same concern I had with HB 2125. Annoy is very vague, and so if the word's removed, I would be glad to vote yes on this, but if it's still in there, I'm casting a no vote. I think it's very vague.
We took that out per AD's recommendation.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. I'll be casting a yes vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Members, any questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, voting on House Bill 1651. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absences of Rep. Mareyoshi and Rep. Quinlan. Any members voting with reservation? Any members voting no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation's adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 2043, harm to students registry for schools, including private schools. Members, we want to incorporate DOE's recommendation just to clarify the language regarding collective bargaining and representation. We want to add DHER's recommendation to be granted access to the data, and also per the request of the DOE, add a position to help out with the implementation within the Department of Education. We want to fold into the provision similar statutory changes to 302L per EOEL's recommendation, and to also add the EOEL director to a temporary, to the temporary panel that's described on page 5, lines 11 and 12. Did that one. Oh. And there are other recommended changes. We're going to ask that per AG's request, we have the Judiciary Committee take a look at those proposed amendments because they're more legal in nature. It's out of the scope of the committee's jurisdiction. Besides that, defecting the date to July 1st, 3000, and any technical amendments that we need to take, we need to take that are non-substantive in nature. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2043. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. For the remainder of this agenda and this bill, noting the excused absences of our members, are there any members wishing to vote with reservation? Any members voting no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1653, DOE and annual increment increases for teachers and EOs. Recommendations to pass this with a HD1, defecting the date to July 1st, 3000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, voting on House Bill 1653. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members voting with reservation? Any members voting no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1614, National Board Certification for Teachers. the incentive program, increasing the bonus. The effective date to July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1614, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members voting with reservation? Any members voting no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1654, DOE and qualified internship programs. Members, we want to accept AG's recommendation for the Department of Education to create adequate standards for both the DOE and third-party administrators. We want to also accept the AG's technical amendment to create a new section instead of folding in policy into the definitions portion of this bill. Also, per DLIR's recommendation, we want to make sure that the interns get paid minimum wage. That's actually an error. It's found on page 5. And per the department's recommendation, DLIR, we want to define qualified interns and qualified internship programs as they do. Again, that's for uniformity per state and federal statute. Defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Rep. Pruso.
So it's my understanding, and I'm asking folks at the department to double check, but it's my understanding that it's not possible under the current law for students to earn both credits and be paid at the same time. So for that reason, I'm going to vote with reservations.
Thank you so much. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1654, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members voting with reservation? Rep. Peruso and Rep. Capella. Any members voting no? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1537, proposed CONAM. Members' recommendations to pass this was a HD1, defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. And we're going to ask humbly that the Judiciary Committee take a look at some of the questions and concerns that were brought up during the judicial process per the last proposal that passed but was struck down via court. Defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000, if I didn't already say that. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1537, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members voting with reservation? Any members voting no?
No vote.
Chair, your recommendation's adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to the next bill, HB 2402, EAs and Food Service, DOE. This is, again, an emergency appropriation. We're going to blank out the $20 million amount, fold it into the committee report, defecting the date, July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 2402, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members voting in reservation? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Lastly, HB 2403, emergency appropriation for charter schools, blanking out the amounts, incorporating into the committee report of $6.6 million, defecting the date to July 1st, 3,000. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2403, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Excuse me. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members voting with reservation? Any members voting no? Seeing none, Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you, everybody. Adjourned.